Hello everyone,
and welcome to
Dad
and me
Love History.
Dad and me love a whole lot of history. We could be the greatest team that the world has ever seen. Dad and me love a whole lot of history.
Today we're looking at
who started World War One.
World War I began on July 28, 1914. The conflict lasted over 4 years, ending on November 11, 1918. It had a few different names, like the Great War, also known as the World War, and the War to End All Wars. Do you know, James, why it wasn't called World War I until at least 20 years after it finished?
Because World War II didn't start.
Exactly. So why would you call it World War I if there's only ever been one World War? So they just called it the World War. It's only after World War II starts that they look back and say, that what happened earlier, must be the First World War. Now we've got the second one. That First World War began because of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. That was a big empire, and he was the heir, that means next in line, to the throne. He was going to be the next emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Whenever Emperor Franz Joseph died, Archduke Franz Ferdinand would be next emperor. But Franz Ferdinand was murdered and war soon began. All this reminds me of a famous quote from Blackadder, a BBC TV comedy programme about history. I heard World War I started when a bloke called Archduke shot an ostrich because he was hungry.
I think you meant it started when Archduke of Austria-Hungary got shot.
Nah, there was definitely an ostrich involved, sir. The people who killed the Archduke, were from a Serbian terrorist group from a little country called Serbia. A group called the Black Hand Gang.
Wait, why did the terrorist group attack him in the first place?
Austria ruled over Serbia.
Oh, and they wanted to be free.
Yeah. That gang threw a grenade at Archduke Franz Ferdinand's open-top car. But that grenade bounced off the back of the car and then exploded near the car behind, injuring everyone inside. The procession of cars then sped away towards the town hall, where the Archduke and his wife Sophie got out of the car and went inside the hall. After they left the town hall, their car was supposed to change its route on the way back so that if there were more people wanting to attack them, the car would be taking an unexpected route. But although the head of security had made that decision to make the car take a different route, the driver never got the message. So they took the route that had been publicised, that people had been told about in advance of their visit. This is all happening in the city of Sarajevo. It's under Austria-Hungary's control, but Serbia wants to separate from Austria-Hungary. Anyway, on that route, a man called Gavrilo Princip, also a member of the Black Hand Gang, saw the car approaching. Still had its roof down. Princip stepped forward and shot and killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife. This was the 28th of June 1914. The assassination led to the Austro-Hungarian Empire declaring war against Serbia. Also, it would pull in other countries like Germany and Russia, France and Britain.
Why did Germany join in?
Many of the large countries in Europe made alliances before the war, which meant that if a war did break out, they had promised to help certain other countries. There were two sides, two alliances. Britain, France and Russia were in one alliance called the Triple Entente, and Germany formed an alliance with Austria-Hungary, which was known as the Dual Alliance. So you could call Germany and Austria-Hungary BFFs, best friends forever. So they sided against Serbia. which was where the Black Hand gang of assassins were from.
Did you know, during World War I, Boy Scouts would guard railway stations and bridges and other important places in case of an invasion by Germany. Many scouts also helped during air raids. They would make the all clear siren ring out after an attack. Some scouts even did firefighting. Why did Russia join in?
Russia sided with Serbia. Those two were BFFs, and Russia started moving its troops slowly because it was such a big country and didn't have the greatest transport. So it slowly began moving some troops closer to the border between Russia and the Austria-Hungarian Empire. And the other side could see this happening. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Germany supported them because of their dual alliance, and Germany declared war on Russia because it knew Russia was getting ready to fight as well.
Did you know, during the First World War, Girl Guides, as female scouts were known, helped with first aid at hospital, and also grew vegetables to help with food shortages. Girl Guides would also do dangerous work, like carrying stretchers during air raids.
We love history. We love history, baby. We love history.
Why did France and Britain join in World War I?
On August 3rd, 1914, Germany declared war on France. This was because they had the great big Russian Empire on one side of Germany and the powerful but smaller France on the other side. Germany knew France and Russia had an alliance, so if Russia was going to fight Germany, France would too, and Germany couldn't take it. They knew they couldn't win if they were fighting both sides at once. Russia on one side, France on the other. Russia was a massive country, and it would take them weeks to get their troops into the right positions. Many of the soldiers were farmers who were harvesting their crops hundreds or even thousands of miles away from the front line. France was much smaller, and Germany thought could be quickly defeated. So the German plan was to send all of its troops west to defeat France first, and then send them all east to defeat Russia even before Russia was 100% ready. That was the plan. Didn't work out that way. To get to France, the German army chose a route which went through Belgium. And because Britain had signed a treaty with Belgium, as soon as German troops invaded Belgium, Britain declared war on Germany. So the five most powerful nations in Europe were at war. Germany and Austria-Hungary against Russia, France and Britain, as well as some of the smaller ones like Serbia and Belgium. And the powerful countries like Britain and Germany, they'd been building up their empires and their armed forces for decades. It was as though they all wanted a fight to show off how powerful they were.
Did you know? Children, like many adults, got excited when war broke out in August 1914. Many kids wanted to join the army, including 9-year-old Alfie Knight from Dublin. Alfie wrote this letter to the government Minister of War, a man called Lord Kitchener.
Dear Lord Kitchener, I am an Irish boy, 9 years of age, and I want to go to the front. I can ride jolly quick on my bicycle, and I would go as a dispatch rider.
Taking messages.
I wouldn't let the Germans get it. I'm a good shot with a revolver and will kill a good few of the Germans. I'm very strong and often win a fight with lads twice as big as myself. I want a uniform and a revolver and will give a good account of myself. Yours affectionately, Alfie Knight.
Lord Kitchener thanked Alfie for his offer but explained that he was not yet quite old enough to go to the front line.
Aww, it's so unfair.
Did America join in World War One?
They did eventually. They joined Britain's side in April 1917. So America had stayed neutral until a German submarine sunk a British passenger ship called Lusitania that killed 1,195 passengers, including 128 Americans. So American people were angry. The US President Woodrow Wilson, he wanted peace. But when the Germans announced that they planned to sink any ship that voyaged towards Britain, President Wilson entered America into the war. 7 months after that, the war ended. Before the end of the war, nearly 10 million soldiers died and another 20 million got injured. You might be wondering what went wrong with that German plan? Well, they couldn't defeat France in just a few weeks, especially once Britain joined in as well. So they ended up fighting Britain and France on one side and Russia on the other and running out of supplies and men, and then America joins in, and so by 1918 German people were starving hungry as there wasn't enough food to go around at home. They refused to go to work and protested against the war. The German Emperor, or William II, abdicated. That means he quit on November 9th, 1918, and Germany surrendered on November 11th.
Did you know some kids did join the army? The youngest British soldier was 12 years old. A boy called Sidney Lewis lied about his age so that he could have an adventure and fight for his country in the war.
But the youngest soldier in the First World War wasn't British, he was Serbian. He lost his family at the beginning of the war, and so he joined the army and they let him fight. Guess how old he was?
10?
8 years old.
What?
So,
James, why do you think that the First World War started?
Because there was two countries that went against war, but those countries had alliances, so everyone just joined in.
Oh, so there were two countries that wanted to go to war with each other, and those two countries were...
Austria-Hungary.
Yeah, Austria-Hungary. I know it's confusing, guys, but there's two different countries today, but that was just one big country, an empire back then. Austria-Hungary had an argument with... Serbia. And of course, it was Serbian terrorists who killed the guy who was next in line to be the emperor of Austria-Hungary. And as James said, both Serbia and Austria-Hungary had close friends.
And those close friends are close friends.
And those close friends are close friends. And yeah, they all joined in and you get a world war. And it really, with the empires involved as well, take the British Empire. When Britain joins in, that means troops are called in from South Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, India. So we end up with one big world war.
And now we go to an advert break for parents.
The Slightest Chance is my latest World War II thriller love story based around real history. After the Japanese won the Battle of Hong Kong, a young English woman named Gwen, who was a real person, was the only female to escape from a Japanese camp, and she did so on foot, and then faced an 800-mile journey across occupied China. By the end of this novel, you will have learned all about her extraordinary adventure and how Gwen was secretly carrying information which the very top of the British government would use in the fight against Imperial Japan. Also from real history, included in the novel is the mass breakout led by a one-legged Chinese admiral, and then there's the Japanese guard, Kiyoshi Watanabe, whose Christian faith pushed him to risk his life helping Japan's enemies. Find out more at poorletters.com. The Slightest Chance, when your enemy is your best friend.
Dad's new novel is now available to order online at all the usual places, or order it directly from the publisher Blacksmith Books. Books. For details, go to poorletters.com or click on the link from dadandmelovehistory.com.
Well, we're getting close to the end of today's episode, but here are some questions to see if you are listening.
Number 1. True or false? World War One started because a bloke called Archduke shot an ostrich because he was hungry.
Number 2. Which small country did Austria-Hungary declare war on first?
Number 3. Why did Russia join the war?
Number 4. Why did Germany join the war?
Number 5. How old was the youngest British soldier?
And number 6. Why did some people, kids and adults, actually want to go to fight in the First World War?
Well, that's about it from Dad and me.
Hey, have you told your friends about this podcast yet?
And please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast.
Or tell us what you think on
Facebook,
Instagram,
and Twitter.
Bye for now from Dad
And me.
Love History.
Chihuahua.
Dad and me love a whole lot of history. We could be the greatest team that the world has ever seen. Dad and me love a whole lot of history.
Anyway, jingle advert. And the assassination led to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The assassination led to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Just want to do a little. I just realised now that what we normally do, which I think is good, is actually come back to the question. So, how did or who did start the First World War? So, I just want to ask you from that what you think's the main reason the war started.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Freedom is yours.
How long am I allowed to know, Dad?
Let me just start this.